Okay, who do we have? Is that Rec Imo? Imo, okay. So Rec, please introduce yourself and the scope to introduce himself and present the result.
My name is Professor Sylvia Uchenna Ago, Resident Electoral Commissioner, Imo State.
My name is Professor Charles Okechukwu Esimone, the Vice Chancellor of Nnamdi Azikiwe University. I am the State Collation Officer for the presidential election of 25th February 2023 in Imo State. The result for the presidential election held on the 25th of February 2023 in Imo State as follows. Total number of registered voters, 241,9922. 241,9922. Total number of accredited voters, 485,150. 485,150. Total number of votes received by the presidential candidate of each of the political parties are as follows. Party AA. Party A, 611. 611. Party AA, 289. 289. Party AAC, 227. 227. ADC, 770. 770. ADP, 267. 267. APC, 66406. 66406. APGA, APGA, 2562. 2562. APM, 405. 405. APP, 197. 197. BP, 619. 619. LP, 360,495. 360,495. NNPP, 1552. 1552. NRM, 167. 167. PDP 30234. 30234. PRP 144. 144. SDP 363. 363. YPP 325. 325. ZLP 1747. 1747. Total valid votes 467 380. 467 380. Rejected votes 10577. 10577. Total votes cast 477957. 477957. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scope. Any places where the elections did not hold or the results cancelled, the figures and the reasons?
Yes, sir. Elections were cancelled in 194 polling units in a total of 23 RAs across 4 local governments. And the major reason was because of insecurity. The number of registered voters is 35542 and PVC collected is 33897 across these 4 local government areas.
Okay, party agents, any observation, any comment? Okay, Scope, step forward and present your report and the results. Okay. Now, where is the EC40G? Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. Greg, thank you very much. Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the state-by-state presentation. The next stage is to record the votes, a summary of the votes scored in each state of the Federation on Form EC 8DA, which is the summary of results on state-by-state basis. Thereafter, this will be transferred to the EC 8E, which is for the declaration and return. And it is therefore my pleasure to show to party agents and ladies and gentlemen present the sealed copies of EC 8DA and the EC 8E. This is the EC 8DA, which is a statement of results on state basis. Okay, this is the result sheet that will contain the summary of results on state-by-state basis. And this is for all to see. This will be completed here. We are not going anywhere to complete it. Then we have the EC 8E, which is the final declaration of results of the election. Open. This is the EC 8E, which is the final declaration of results of the election. Completely blank. So for the next few minutes, we will complete the forms, both the EC 8DA and the EC 8E. Thereafter, I will read aloud the summary of the votes on state-by-state basis before moving to the next stage. Now, if any party agent or anybody present wishes to stretch his or her legs, or to take a health break, or to get a cup of tea or coffee, now is the time to do so. It will take a few minutes for us to enter all the figures summarized on state-by-state basis. And thereafter, we'll invite you for the next stage. But we are not going anywhere. Everything is going to be done here until the final stage. Thank you.
All right, we seem to be heading somewhere. Just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, it seems, from the National Collation Center. But we will continue our conversation here, and when the INEC is ready with us, ready for us with the rest of the process, we will get back to the National Collation Center. Now let me get back to Amsfree Ajanaku. You were wrapping up a point earlier. So, would you think that there have been a lot of surprises, as I asked earlier, in this election?
Absolutely. In fact, these 2023 elections would go down in history as one of, the most keenly contested elections, we have seen in since the advent or the return of democracy to Nigeria in 1999. And I would say that there has been a major disruption in the political process. When you look at the fact that in 1999, when Nigeria returned to democracy, Obasanjo, President Olusegun Obasanjo, in his first election, coasted home with, in terms of the 25% spread. He had that in around 32 to 33 states, across the country, and so on. The presidential election was not this tight, like what we are seeing today, and I think it shows that the electorate has finally woken up, and it also shows that the electorate is sending a message to the political class and to the politicians that the people are finally aware of their democratic rights, and that they are ready to exercise the democratic rights. We have also seen in this election the fact that Nigerians braved the odds, Nigerians braved the elements to participate in the process. In fact, I dare say that if not for some of the hitches we saw in the process with respect to late commencement here and there, we could have seen a higher turnout of the vote than we are seeing in this election. Because I believe, looking at the numbers that are coming out, that we are really not, in terms of the turnout, we are really not done better than the turnout of 2019, which was around 35%. That speaks to some sort of democratic decline if you look at the turnout figures strictly. But in terms of the enthusiasm, the fact that the people who came out, did not, give an inch, to any obstacle. They kept pressing forward. We had people who spent the night at polling units. We had people who were, when the system, when the process was, experiencing challenges and hitches, they were willing to bring their generator to power, to provide, power. So it shows that Nigeria's democracy is evolving and it's maturing. And earlier on, before you came on, we were also talking about the role that social media has played in this election, which is a space where a lot of the young people engage. As a matter of fact, the social media numbers, in 2019, we had around 27 million social media users. But as we speak in this election, we're dealing with around 36 million social media users. So all of those demographics, are definitely coming together. What we are seeing today. Yeah.
All right. Let me get to David Akoji. It's almost like, okay, I think we have Mia Ogidi, who is our INEC correspondent at the National Collation Center. Mia Ogidi,
Good morning and welcome to a new month. Today is 1st of March 2023. What a coincidence. A first day of the month, and it's quite a historic one for Nigeria as well. The 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory results have been collated, and it's kind of 12 states. Labour Party won in 12 states, PDP won in 12 states, APC won in 12 states, NNPP 1 state. It's quite a coincidence, another coincidence here again, and the mood here, just as the whole nation, is that of anticipation, expectation. They want to see, but the details in the figures. Who will win ultimately is in the figures, because everybody 12, 12, 12, 1. So what one cannot tell at this moment, what the figures in the respective states these parties have won will tell. So that is quite created some level of anxiety. So we are waiting. The chairman said a matter of minutes. He didn't even specify the time that it will take him for him to compile all. Said it was going to be a matter of minutes. So right now he's very busy, and the National Commissioner is very busy trying to tidy up the figures, and next thing to declare the president and the vice president elect, or any other thing, he will let us know. That's the situation here.
Right, and you do not seem to have an idea of how many minutes that this computation will take.
That is what the chairman didn't tell us. He said minutes. Minutes is indefinite. If not, it can be 100 minutes, can be 2 minutes, can be 5 minutes. But he said minutes, that party agents and any other person can just take a walk around the premises, and if there is a cup of tea you can take, you can take. And right now the Inspector General of Police, Alkali Baba, and that of the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, retired, just walked in because it's quite a critical moment. We are the climax of this contest.
May I say with you, please? You have followed elections in recent years. What has struck you particularly about this one that has been absent in the previous elections, say 2019 and possibly 2015?
It's quite different, because from the figures alone you can see the uniqueness of this election. The three top contenders winning in 12 states each. Labour Party in 12 states, PDP in 12 states, APC in 12 states. That is unique compared to previous elections.
All right, let me leave you at the moment, Mia, but please do not sleep. We'll keep you standing so that we can get the details as hot as they are as soon as they are made available. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Mia Ogidi giving us an idea of what is happening. Of course, he doesn't know a lot of what is happening. The INEC chairman, the chief electoral officer said, well, just minutes. Well, minutes could be up to 70, 80, you never know. But just to say that we have been joined by Dr. Omali Ben Amedu, who is a development consultant and public affairs analyst. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning, the 1st of March.
I'm pleased to be here with you again.
All right. I was asking David Akoji earlier, what do you see with where we are at the moment from where we left it off, say on Monday and earlier on Tuesday? Did you think that we would be at the threshold of announcing a winner that we are now?
Well, there were certainly moments of anxiety where doubts were entertained based on some of the movements that we saw at the Coalition Center. But you must give credit to the INEC chairman for his comportment and his ability to manage the process through up until we have gotten to this stage. It takes a lot of maturity and decorum to be able to manage people of diverse, intense interests, seated at the same venue, pursuing diverse goals, all at the same time. So kudos must go to the INEC chairman. Even in the larger society, among electorates who showed preferences diversely too, there was anxiety. So the anxiety is not only happening at the Coalition Center, but it's also happening amongst supporters, of the various political parties that have shown strong outing in this particular general election. And like Hans-Free said, the election holds a lot of lessons for all stakeholders, and he mentioned a couple of them. One of the outstanding lessons for me is the lesson I think the gladiators in the political contest should take home. The fact that Nigerians have become impatient, the fact that Nigerians have realized the importance and the potency of the PVC, and that they are willing to punish people who renege on their promises, people who abdicate, politicians who abdicate their responsibility, to the electorate. I think this is a very strong lesson. And we saw it play out in many states where incumbents, were removed, as it were, using the PVC. Where people who ordinarily you would feel that cannot lose election because of where they are sitting, lost to people who were little known, So I think that's a very strong lesson to draw from what has played out. And all of this did not play out by happenstance. It also played out because some people sat down and said, look, we need to put some measures in place to strengthen our electoral system. And that started with the amendment to the Electoral Act, the introduction of technology, and some of these things. And then it also dovetailed into leadership decision making at the national level, at the level of the president, which made it difficult for people to access money, and money historically during elections have been linked to violence. It is money, cash, that you use to pay thugs.
Indeed. It
is also cash that you use to buy votes. And it is when you put cash on the table to buy votes that people become agitated. People feel cheated in that process, and you have fighting, you have all kind of violence and all of that. So a lot of strategic thinking also went into that. And I think at this point, members of the public who have witnessed these elections around the country and have seen that even though we had violence, this violence were not pervasive. They happened in pockets of places, So the thinking that went into making the decision that made the cash, the naira, scarce in our pockets, members of the public can now see the payoff, of that in terms of how largely peaceful these elections went. Not to say that there weren't violence, there weren't, in some places unwholesome activities, but it was definitely not wide spread. So these are some of the things I think coming from when these elections happened on Saturday up until today that should not be ignored by all stakeholders.
All right, thank you very much, David Akoji. Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, you have that little smile at the corner of your lips. Of your lips. You seem to be pleased with where we are.
Yes.
But let's take a look at the results that have come in so far. Of course, beyond the 12, 12, 12, and then 1 that we have, if you are going to score on the basis of the number of states clinched, of course, 112 has the FCT as +1. The devil is in the detail. Where have you seen the biggest surprises in these polls?
Well, for me, I think I mentioned it earlier, that for me this is the first time competitive election is holding in Nigeria. I term it competitive because of element of surprises we have in these polls. Previously, the language of election is a language of war and threat and intimidation. Where moving train is either you jump in or we crush you. We are going to achieve landslide. We are going to, because the elections outcomes are predetermined, and they deploy languages that they could use to justify whatever vote they are going to manufacture at the end of the day. So they tell you we are the biggest party in Africa, so we are going to do whatever it takes to have landslide. That boastfulness was out of the question in this election, to the extent that the ruling party was even crying that all they needed to benefit as the ruling party was not given to them. And those that were making those assertions were used to the abnormalities that used to play out in the name of incumbency factor, where the ruling party deploys state resources as well as the coercive apparatus of the state to retain power. That was not there. The president was mostly like disinterested in who becomes the president. And he made a point. He said, if we can win in 2015 without incumbency factor, we can still replicate it. So everybody should go to the electorate to, and he went ahead to implement the Naira redesign policy. For the first time, you could see governors of the ruling party taking federal government to court. For the first time in this, and I said something, I said the president was behaving as if he was in the opposition. For the first time. So, and then the results. Okay, let me use what used to happen before to underscore what I want to say. Now, previously in our elections, the strongest party rigged elections across board to ensure that the majority, nobody was going to question the governor. So State House of Assembly, they rigged the majority. Budget comes, no scrutiny, no question, passed. At local government level, nobody questions the chairman. You bring budget in the morning, 1 hour later, the budget is out, approved. And if there is any fight, it means the sharing formula agreed upon has been changed by the governor. So you have impeachment threat here and there. But in this election, the governors, most of the governors see the Senate as their retiring home. As they are leaving, they retire to Senate. So the only way you can become a senator is when your governor is not interested in that seat. But we've seen governors, sitting governors, losing elections.
And quite a number of them.
Yes.
Quite a number of them, because I can probably count up to 10 at once.
Of course.
Who didn't make it. And that rids the Senate
Yes.
of a lot of, imagine what it would have been if you had the previous governors who were there, the ones who are trying to make a return, and the fresh ones that are going. Remember, this is a terminal year for most of the governors.
Yes.
And most of them also wanted to transit to the Senate.
To the Senate.
But that isn't going to happen from north to south, east to west.
So we have to give kudos to those that push for the reforms in INEC. And that, okay, the process must respect the wishes of the people. And the determination of INEC to stand, to be ahead of our politicians. What do I mean by that? You know, when they brought the card readers, and because the card reader is just a card reader, it will only read card. And if it cannot authenticate you because your palm is lacerated, incident form is supposed to be used. And we saw the abuse of incident form in this country, where they deliberately keep aside the card reader and then thumbprint the way they like, because of the obvious lacuna in the card reader. Then, by the time you go to the tribunal, they manufacture incident form and bring Ghana must go that will not be counted until the day the days elapses, and then the verdict is passed against you. That led to the innovation that led to the beavers. So beavers is not just a mere card reader, but it has the pictures and then information about the voter. So if the beavers cannot pick your thumb, it will pick your facials. And that is why after you are authenticated, then they use the beavers to capture you, to ensure that the information is the same as the one that is uploaded. So beyond the shenanigans, beyond the violence, beyond the accusations and allegations of rigging, beavers is a game changer. We are just being impatient. We've seen it in Ocean State. By the time you go to the court and then they bring the beavers, and then you are not authenticated, assuming if it is 10 persons in that polling unit that was captured, that is assumed to be the accredited number of voters. So if you enter 200 votes, you are just wasting your time, because it is that 10 accredited by beavers that will be the valid accredited. So what I'm saying is we need to be patient with the system, because this system, I continue to say it, as INEC is evolving them to checkmate, it is even surprising that there is violence in this election with the beavers that has assured everybody. But you know, in every system, the beneficiaries of the status quo, or those that will benefit from the innovation, will naturally support it. Those that know that they are going to lose out are always against it. So it's always a fight between the positive and the negative, until where the positive overwhelm the negative. Then you have a semblance of what? A new status quo. That is where we are now. So another fundamental thing that I've seen in this election, which call for celebration, is that parties can no longer lay claims to being dominant in one region or one state over the other.
Strongholds.
Now, this one fundamental thing that came out of this election, there is a movement away from using state as a basis for computation to use of local government, because Party A may pick this local government, Party B will pick another local government, Party C will pick another local government, which was not the norm before. The norm has always been one party will win the entire state. Now, another thing again is, for the fact that the ruling party is still in power does not guarantee anybody. And I think that is what we want to see going forward. I've said it before, I'm going to repeat it again, that a party conducts local government election and that party wins everything. I think going forward, nobody can give us that crap. Because if, as a ruling party, you're going to win the entire local government, then no party should win any local government in this election. It should be won by you. So if you have, for instance, PDP conducting election in a PDP state, no opposition party will win a single seat. If APC is conducting, APC will do the same thing. If SDP is going to do the same thing, and then when they come to the national level, this person will be saying that you rig election, you rig election. Well, we know that our diversity will not allow us to speak in one language. There must be differences, and those are the differences that we see in this election. It's a reflection of our diversity. It's a reflection of the divergent thinking that went into the selection process. It is a confirmation that no party or single individual in Nigeria has the overwhelming support of everybody to the extent that you can sweep the poll. So tomorrow, if you are talking and you want to be taken seriously, you want people to support you, then you have to speak the language of Nigeria. You must be a pan-Nigerian, and you must reflect the interests of Nigeria. And I continue to say it. In Nigeria as it is, even the North that claim to have this, the numbers, right, is not like the way it used to be during the time of Sadawana, because we're practicing regionalism. So if a decision is taken at Arewa House and say we are going to vote NPC, it will be like that. Today, PDP won Bauchi, right? Ordinarily, it won't happen. NNP won Kano. Ordinarily, it will not happen. But we are beginning to see that people are beginning to vote for what they believe in, and we should respect that as a people and as a nation.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Now, let me go to Dr. Mali Ben Ahmed. He said beavers is a game changer. I think we can all agree on that. But there was resistance to the use of beavers in certain places, which also prompted cancellation of results in those places. Some collation of the RECs and collation officers who gave their reports said they cancelled in some cases on the basis of refusal to use the beavers. And in other cases, of course, the parties that staged a walkout said they did so because failure to upload. Now, which they felt would have given it more credibility, made it tighter. The much we were able to do gave us 12, 12, 12, and then one somewhere. What could have been if we had a greater use of the beavers, of technology generally?
Well, good morning, fellow Nigerians. When I appeared here on Sunday, I made a statement that this is going to be the most unpredictable election in Nigerian history. Based on that one, people like us will not be surprised to see this 12-12-12-1. And I said it was going to be most unpredictable and most spontaneous. What you don't expect might happen, what you expect might not happen. So it has now become a new face of the Nigerian society. On the issue of beavers, psychologically, human beings are people that new ideas are always opposed, simply not because it is not positive or not going to work well, but because it is new. Some people were already afraid that it was going to distort their expectation. How they used to dominate the electoral atmosphere before. If this machine is going to be put into good use, it might distort us. And it has actually resulted in this a spectacular happening. Because the machine was already costing some in quote, damages to some individuals' expectations. So I wouldn't be surprised that in some areas, I would say, in quote, deliberately refuse to be used, so that what they aim at would happen well for them. And of course, the umpires or the commissioners were smart enough to distort that expectation and say that, okay, it was cancelled because the machines were not used. This machine is a system that has proved acceptance based on what it has done. The only hitch we had was people's expectation, of course, based on the promises issued by INEC, that the results will be uploaded on time. And because it didn't come, people almost ran out of patience. It is not new for Nigerians to do that. And I had somebody mention that Nigerians are traditional opposers to outcomes. Whether some people were genuinely defeated or not, they still raised dust. That they were manipulated, that was why they got lost. They lost the position. That also contributed to the walkout. Because this walkout of 18 is the right to protest. The right to protest, but I would have appealed, if they knew where it was so, why not wait until the whole thing is concluded and you have your parameters of contesting it. In 2019, towards the end of the collation, I participated in the collation exercise. I was involved as a member of those who came to observe the collation. And when towards the end, PDP was protesting to an extent. The chairman gave an instance that was almost not getting acceptable. Without sounding so egotic, I made a statement that we have a process of contesting what you don't accept. And some people felt that my last statement about the last statement was what calmed the tension. This is what was almost transferring today, which means from 2015 to 2019 and to 2023, it has become characteristic that Nigeria, the one political party must protest. In 2015, it was PDP. When Professor Jega was being confronted that the result was going to be unacceptable, it came to pass. 2019, it was again the PDP, that it was not going to be acceptable because of certain circumstances that they observed. It came to pass. This time around, it is 1, 2, or 3 other parties who have staged a walkout, and some others decided to remain. It will be a little unfortunate that we continue in this manner of confronting when we have not concluded. It was like I used to say, the antelope dance. The main dance has not come, but the animal had already danced itself lame. When the main dance came, it couldn't even dance any longer. So it is like taking, a preemptive position. You wait, the results are announced, and you have your legal procedure or adopt, a normal procedure of confronting it. I would have had, I wish to advise and appeal to Nigerians, to any political party that is affected, or feel affected, to exercise caution, go back, put your information together, and then there is a process that you will follow. And the beavers, with the authentic result that we have there, unless it is a claim and a proof that the beavers were altered. And if they were altered, at least the result at each polling unit was already compiled by the different political parties. If you had the opportunity, you could snap it and keep it. Then you can take to your a situation room of your political party. That could be used as your evidences of the backup for your contest at a later time.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Omale Ben Amedu. Now let me get back to arms-free Ajanaku. Perhaps we should take a look, let's do an analysis of results that we have on the screen here. Let's take a look at what we have and be able to. Let's go with Kaduna, for instance. Kaduna throws up a PDP victory. We are talking about the power of incumbency. And in Kaduna, you have one of the most vocal governors who you would think that all of these would be delivered on the basis of power of incumbency. But what do we have? A PDP, something close to a landslide by the PDP. And then the incumbent party coming, second, and then Labour showing up significantly here as the third. What would you say is responsible for the result we have in Kaduna, for instance?
So it's a very, very interesting result. I think I would say from the political point of view, the governor, Nasir El-Rufai, he saw this coming, which was why I believe that some of the defiance you saw with respect to his position on the Naira redesign policy, I actually think it played out a lot in terms of how this victory has panned out for the PDP, because you are also talking about the fact that when that whole debate was going on with respect to Naira redesign, the PDP as a political party, despite the fact it was in the opposition, was out there supporting the move of the president. And in Kaduna State, what played out was the governor issuing counter directives to what the president issued. So I think the electorate has basically sent out a message here that rhetoric around Naira redesign did not really matter much to them, and they have, with this result, endorsed the PDP. But the numbers also show us that Labour Party was expected to do well, especially around Southern Kaduna, and I think that also reflected in this vote. On the whole, I think the electorate is sending out a clear message of dissatisfaction with the incumbent, and this is what I believe you are seeing reflecting. So for the purpose of our political evolution, I think any defeat for an incumbent is a good omen for the democratic process, because it shows that someone wielding the whole instrument of state power can be removed if he doesn't satisfy the wishes and aspirations of the electorate.
All right, thank you, Amsfree Ajanaku. Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, I saw you shaking your head at times and then nodding at times. You have a contrary view with regards to this Kaduna.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Amsfree has put on the table. You see, there are other factors that led to this situation. The first is the posturing of the governor. The governor could be said to mean well for Kaduna State. He took some tough decision in terms of urban renewal, including the destruction of illegal structures that have made movement impossible to reconstruct the roads. Whether he did not communicate with the people, but they felt very bad about all of those. In Nigeria, the way we do our things, we do things with impunity. So the government was not talking before, and then you have somebody in the land office that allocate areas that are meant for roads. And then he came, he built those roads. Some of them, he never compensated them because they never possessed the legal papers in the first instance. So that angered a lot of people to say, okay, we are going to pay the APC government back. The second one, which is most fundamental, insecurity. At a time, Kaduna was a focus. And though the governor did a lot, but again, some people felt the governor did not do. So these are some of the factors that, but what we are saying most fundamentally is this, that the governor will allow the wishes of the people to prevail, not doing anything to undermine the process or to sponsor talks is something that we have to commend, because if, as a beneficiary, because he was a beneficiary of the process, when he came in, if the governor then and the president did not allow the process to run full cycle, he won't have become the governor. And majority of them, we need to commend them for not doing things untowards that would have led to truncating the process. So for me, it's a win-win situation because we need to preserve our state. Whatever happened, our state remains our state, and then we have to go back to this state anytime, any day.
All right, David Akoji, well, let me go. Let's come home to the FCT. For so long, the FCT was a stronghold for the PDP. Always a stronghold for the PDP. No matter what happened, the FCT stayed with the PDP for a long time. But here we are. The PDP is coming a distant third. There was a labor tsunami in some parts of the country. But in the FCT, even if the labor tsunami was missing, the PDP was still not going to win the FCT for once in a long time. What do you think has happened here in the FCT? Is it a change of allegiance by residents and the people of the FCT?
If you look at the FCT in terms of the area councils that constitute the FCT, 6 of them, and you study their election history, you will find that it has not usually been the case that one political party wins all 6 of the area councils. And what that tells you is that there are divergent, thinking, and there are divergent preferences. But in this particular election, what we have seen is not surprising to me. FCT is cosmopolitan. You have people from every part of this country living here in the FCT. So what has played out in the FCT and the results that you are seeing with Labour in the lead is comparable to what has played out in Lagos, the former federal capital of our country. Reason being, Lagos is also very cosmopolitan.
Indeed.
People are enlightened. There are lots of young people who live in these 2 states. And that the popularity of Labour Party, for instance, was driven strongly on the social media platforms. And these are prevalent among youths, like Arms Free had said earlier today. And you find a predominance of these youths in Lagos and Abuja. So if you look at it from that point of view, in addition to the election history of the FCT, which shows that the same party hardly ever wins all 6 area councils, then it becomes easy to understand what has played out here. So that's my take on it.
All right, and Dr. Amedu, the difference, in fact, if you put together all the other 3, it still does not add up to what you have for the Labour Party. Beyond winning generally, the Senate, the only Senate seat, also is taken by Labour Party by a landslide, which is another major upset, because beyond being the PDP stronghold, there was a Senator Philip Aduda, who was usually referred to as the landlord of Abuja, and he seemed to have gone missing in these particular elections. Is there a problem? What could have played out beyond the tsunami that Labour brought on that could diminish him so badly and then snatch the FCT in such a brazen manner?
Well, like Mr. Akoji said, apart from being metropolitan, as FCT is, as a microcosm of Nigeria as a country, the people who are here are highly more enlightened almost than any other state. So maybe most of the messages put out by the Labour Party sank into their consciousness. And that will mean, okay, we have been here, we've been all this. We shouldn't also be surprised that this year, most people who came in to vote have never voted in Nigerian history. So much more than you have ever expected or witnessed in this country. And then they came with a message of what we, now let's be part of it any longer. Like one American comedian ever said that if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. The consciousness in FCT rose beyond expectation that now let's be part of it so that we too can feel it. Because, the demolition factor or whatever has happened to people in this place has only affected the so-called non-indigenous of FCT. Why I say it's so-called, because if you have lived here, you are supposed to be an indigenous, because the FCT now is everybody's land. But because most of them have felt the branches of whatever the government decision have been implemented, they now have to decide on who will now protect their interests. Because if you have to be honest to ourselves, we saw that this enclave of this one belongs to the FCT residents and it must not be touched by the FCD or FCTA. Now, okay, let's now have somebody who belongs to us, who is one of us, to see how he can protect our interests. We're not working actually against the people, the citizens, or the original settlers of this area. But now to say, let's also be part of the system so that our interests can be covered. is also instrumental to what has happened, and that Labour, coming as an underdog from the beginning, has sent a message to Nigerians that this dominance by individuals like my colleagues have analyzed will no more play. And actually on Sunday when I appeared there, I said what we wish is that, what we pray for is that we shouldn't have a common domination at the National Assembly. So that once it is competitive, you must align with one or two other groups, so that once any law is going to be passed comfortably, it must be a contribution from every other opposition, so that once you are going to implement anything, it will now reach everybody. Because if I aligned with you to approve on any policy that you want to put on ground, once you are implementing it, you will also make sure that my interest is protected because I was contributory to the enactment of that law.
Now, that's an important point you have raised. And now that you have spoken about the National Assembly and its composition, you know, it's because of the kind of laws we have, it is very easy to be Labour Party in the morning, be PDP in the afternoon, and be APC in the evening. Arms-free Ajanaku, how is this going to work to the benefit of the people if parties will stick with if individuals rather will stick with the parties that has brought them to power and not be in a hurry to, you know, switch camps?
Absolutely. This is a very, very important question. And just before I talk about that, I think FCT presents a very interesting scenario for the shockers that we have seen in this election alongside Lagos, alongside also the clean sweep you are seeing in the Southeast, lots of, you know, Labour Party victories, and you're going to have a National Assembly with a very, very interesting coloration politically, and then you're going to move away from the whole idea of a rubber stamp legislator that you know, just, you know, takes everything the president brings hook, line, and sinker. I'm sure there's, you know, there's going to be a lot of negotiation, horse trading, and coalition building, even within all the different parties that have made it to the National Assembly. That being said, FCT also has, like Dr. Omale said, the question of the original inhabitants, the original settlers who have been in this, who have been here before, you know, the place was capital. Yes, became capital, and they feel marginalized. They feel that the current existing system has not really played up their interest in terms of political representation. And if you look at their population, they, you know, rank with several states in the country. For example, they have one senator. You know, there's no special state status such that they can elect, you know, whether you want to call it a mayor or a governor. So that marginalization factor also played out in this election, in the sense that I followed conversations on social media wherein it was said that the PDP representation for the past 2 decades in the FCT has not pushed hard enough in terms of getting justice for the original inhabitant. And so when the Labour came with the rhetoric of from consumption to production, and, you know, talking about family, talking about justice, talking about fairness, I think that message also resonated with the original inhabitant, and we are seeing that in a sense playing out in the outcomes. Now, back to the main question you asked, which is about the fact of elected members jumping from one party to another. What I'm also seeing from this election is that the energy that the electorate has put into the process is also propelling them to already put in place certain safeguards, like already issuing warnings that if we've, you know, done so much, brave the odds to elect you, and you go to the National Assembly and cross carpet to another party, we also have the right to recall. So for me, that is democratic accountability, you know, playing out at its best. And I also strongly believe that this is the way we can then force the parties to build ideology, to build, you know, an internal party culture that shows that they have identity. So a Labour Party might decide now that it's the party to go to on education and health. Other parties, can also, bring themselves up in terms of the identity around the issues that they want to canvass to the electorate. That way, our democracy will mature, and it will now be driven on issues, unlike in the past where it was just about jamborees, people attending rallies, and the substance of how the parties will govern and will govern did not really come up in terms of when the election was happening.
Now that we are still with the FCT, we are still talking about the FCT. David Akoji, there are a number of issues that the original inhabitants, like he had mentioned, had raised through the years. They had asked for a ministerial appointment of FCT origin to represent them as FCT minister. That's one. They had asked for 3 senators, like other states do. I mean, Bayelsa is also a very small state. If Bayelsa can have 3, why not the FCT? FCT is becoming bigger and bigger every day. And they had asked for increase in the number of representatives, House of Reps members, that is. Now, which of these, or if you feel all of them, is more justified, talking about the demands that the original inhabitants of the FCT have made through the years, and why?
Well, the fact of the matter is people will continue to agitate for inclusion, and for such inclusion that will protect their interests. And if you ask me, such agitations are legitimate. They are legitimate to the extent that your place of origin has become federal capital. That shouldn't amount to such huge levels of disadvantage, to the inhabitants of the place, if we are thinking about inclusion and fairness. So these agitations, to my mind, should be listened to and negotiated, with the inhabitants, the original inhabitants of the FCT. And I think that over the years, there's been deliberate efforts to expand the space, to accommodate these inhabitants. Even in the national bureaucracy, in the federal bureaucracy, certain considerations are given as a result of these agitations. Yeah. So all of this that they are asking for, I think to a large extent is legitimate. But because this is federal capital, they cannot be insisting that they would always be the ones to produce the minister of the FCT.
Well, it's just one of the things they ask. I want to believe that if they, for instance, have 3 senators, for instance,
yes,
they could let that go.
Yes.
If they also have a minister that is of FCT origin, even if that person is not the minister of the FCT, I think they will still be satisfied.
Okay, given that context, given that context, with regards to ministerial appointment, I think it's not completely out of place. But if you are talking about 3 senators, our laws, as it were, do not restrict eligibility for contest as senators only to indigents
of the FCT,
of a state, or of the FCT. So if you open that space up, and which is why I think all of us should support them in that agitation, then it opens space for anyone who has lived in the FCT long enough and feels that he's popular enough to win.
For instance, the winner of one of the House of Reps, Yamak, is certain Chinedu, who is from the southeast.
That's the point. Even the person who has ousted the former, yes, it's not an indigene of the FCT. So if the indigenes of the FCT are saying, give us 3 senators, expand the space for us in terms of House of Reps, since we don't have members of State House of Assembly, if we join them in that agitation and we support them, all of us stand to benefit.
All right. I think the FCT is generating a lot of interest among guests in the studio. Okay, we take some more time. David Amedu, Dr. Amedu, rather, you have something else to say regarding the FCT results?
Yeah, one of the things I was
going to talk about was this, when you talked about people changing parties,
Okay.
which we call political prostitution. I think what has to be done on that one particularly is that I will raise an opinion that as they return, the National Assembly returns this time, and the various parties return, they should amend their policies, their manifestos, and their constitutions specifically, and insert a clause of ideology. Before you take up the form of it to represent a political party, you sign that clause. You must stay till the end of this tenure before you change camp. If you don't want to take that term as a term, as a conditionality for you to contest on our platform, then you can go to somewhere else and pick up your ticket. Because there are situations where some parties won tickets, and then at the end, before the end of that tenure, they don't have any candidate representing them again. But because they won originally, the INEC does not have the powers to deregister them. So if you have won on a particular platform, you must remain there until the end of that tenure. The parties should amend their constitutions to give that as a clause for every person, every candidate arising from that party to live by that. And if he doesn't agree to it and flouts it, they will go to court and institute a recall so that they can take a replacement.
Which will be easier, going through the courts of the ideology of political parties and all that, or instituting it as a law, making it a legislative input that you cannot leave one party to another within a particular space of time, at least spend XYZ amount of time in a political party before you switch. Not that if you go here and you quarrel with Mr. A, yes, you dash to the other one, you quarrel with Mr. B, you dash to another one, such that you could belong to 3 different parties in 3 days.
The concept is, if it starts from the party ideology, it is easier. Because as you want to send it to the National Assembly, it may take them time because they are the ones to benefit. Those who are likely to benefit based on whatever they have lobbied behind will not agree that for that law to be passed.
I want to correct an impression.
Okay.
Presently, there is a law that frowns against cross-carpeting.
Okay.
But as the makers of the law, they know what they are doing. So they added a caveat to it and said when there is a crisis. So even when there is no crisis, they orchestrate one to give them the alibi
that there is crisis.
To say there is crisis. And that is why they are jumping ship. So that is why you see this factionalization going on. It's not because there is no law against it this time around. And that is why, for instance, like this set of National Assembly members that amended the Electoral Act, especially, for instance, the issue of the delegates, you know, they did the amendment and equally excluded themselves from that very particular. So we need courageous lawmakers that will make laws without a caveat. Because what has been happening with our laws are laws that are made to be disregarded by those that made the law. So once they finish making the law, okay, if you are caught cheating in an election, you are to be banned, for instance, for life. But you have the option of paying a fine of 50,000. So what is the law saying? And I have 1 billion in my account. I can commit multiples and pay 50,000.
And these are the same people who will make the laws.
Yes.
So the laws are hardly made to their own disadvantage.
Yeah. Yes. So I wanted to add something to this issue of FCT. You see, Irete Kingibe is not just any other politician. She has been around for too long.
Here?
4th time.
Yeah, she has been around for too long. In fact, if there was anything that has prevented her to become a senator or anything in FCT, is the issue of indigenous settler. And she has worked for so many persons. She was able to galvanize support across board. No any politician in FCT in the last 20 years that will tell you that they don't know Irete Kingibe It's not true. The only thing is that she has not been given the platform to, market herself and get the popular. So sometimes things happen, especially ideas, when the time has come, nothing can stop it. So I think that is what has happened.
On this issue of cross-carpeting,
yes.
Just one last contribution. Something that actually has me totally puzzled. You know, I participated in the voting in this election that just passed, and I did not see any candidate's name on the ballot. What I saw on the ballot was the logo of the political parties. And I think that is in tandem with the thinking that it's political parties that go into these elections and not the individuals. So how is it that an individual who gets elected on the platform of a political party, and that victory supposedly belongs to that political party, would abdicate that political party, move to another, and still take that victory along with his or herself to a new platform that lost at the elections, and this is valid? That's a huge puzzle.
Okay.
So sorry, just if you would allow me, just one last word on the FCT question, because there is section 299 of the Constitution, which many of, in fact, a vast majority of the original inhabitants describe that clause as satanic, because it says the FCT should be treated as if it is a state, right? And if you say it should be treated as if it's a state, other states have ministers, and so why? And the ministers are not in Ekiti State now. Somebody from Edo State will not come and stand, will not go and be nominated as minister from Ekiti State. So it speaks to that whole question of marginalization, that whole question of political exclusion, which has to be addressed. While I agree that the candidate of the Labour Party who has just won has been in the field for long and all of that, but it also raises representation issues for the original inhabitants themselves. That now the person who was there was an original inhabitant. Probably he didn't. He has spent his time and he has left. It means that for another 4 years, there will be no original inhabitant of the FCT in a city that they made space for to become the capital of Nigeria. So for me, the injustice has gone on for 40 years, and the electoral process is part of those corrective measures, but there are also some political reforms that can be made, and we should not allow them to get to a point where they begin to make things hot, for us to listen to them.
All right.
My brother, let me correct one impression. This is election. It is not military era. That it is the military that appointed for the people of FCT,
of course,
the senators. This is a conscious decision by the inhabitants of FCT. And as it is in Nigeria, every adult is eligible to vote and be voted for. So that we are playing ethnic card does not mean. And what did we say here? Most of us agreed that the person that was there, part of the charges against him was that he was not pushing for the interest of FCT. So if an outsider can do it better, this is not the first time FCT is voting for an outsider. Kairat Gwadabe represented FCT. Yes, way back in 1999, and she did fantastically good. And Azodo Amak. So, and in Amak today, I bet you majority of the chairmen, if they are contesting, their vice chairmen are always Igbo because of the population of the Igbo in FCT.
Yeah,
so
now let's but by the way, how many are the original inhabitants of the FCT?
Yes.
What we haven't considered is the fact that the elites, FCT is cosmopolitan, like we said earlier.
Yes.
The elites are here.
Yes.
It's just like Lagos.
Yes.
And so the decision may not have been necessarily that of the original inhabitants to vote against their own. Perhaps the cosmopolitan nature of the FCT may have made it so that
but
the elites and others who came to work and settle in FCT have decided to go that way. But let's look at another cosmopolitan state. Well, FCT is federal capital, but welcome to Lagos.
Yes,
for so long, Lagos was synonymous with the APC. Whether you call it the AD, the AC, and then the APC, Lagos has always stayed there, and it had been the stronghold of the APC from the time of, from the AD time to AC and now APC. It has always been a stronghold. But the tsunami did not spare
even the presidential candidate.
Lagos. Even PDP that comes somewhere close did so badly in Lagos. But here we are, 582-454 with the Labour Party to clinch the state. Not much of a margin if you want to compare with what
Happened in FC.
what happened here. Not much of a margin if you want to compare with Lagos with APC. I beg your pardon. So let's look at this and this. Not so much of a margin, but the mere fact that a party, another party, could level up and even surpass in Lagos is something to study as a course, perhaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are a number of factors, and Dr. Hamiso, I know he's like an expert in factors, but, but I think one of the major factors here is the youth revolt, and this is
the seats of the revolt itself.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a big win for the youth demographic, because the results we saw here was actually driven by that youth demographic, and Lagos was has been one of the hotbeds of that kind of, would you say, resistance to what they describe as the old order. And there has been this very vocal mobilization to among the youths. And again, the proviso should be made that the youths are not monolithic. But in the case of Lagos, it has been a very, very strong movement. And I see this result also impacting the governorship election of March 11, because the demographic that pulled this off is having their eyes fixated on the governorship. And so if they could dislodge in quotes, they say it in the social media parlance that the incumbent party there was served breakfast. So if they could serve breakfast at the presidential level, they are also thinking of serving breakfast at the to the incumbents at the governorship level. So it makes the permutations for Lagos a lot more interesting. I think that's a state to watch on March 11.
All right, a state to watch on March 11. David Akoji, you share his sentiments. Do you think, or don't you think, that the drive would have faded out a bit by next weekend?
Well, the factors that played out in the presidential elections may not necessarily be the same factors that will play out, and I'm talking across the country now, that will play out for governorship election. But there are 2 or 3 things that pop out for me personally out of this outcome in Lagos. The first one is the margin of victory, of the Labour Party over the APC. Many people had imagined that the margin of victory would be larger than this, because of the nature of Lagos and all the rhetoric, that went around in the build-up to the presidential election. That's one factor that pops out for me. The other factor is this. I think that this outcome in Lagos was good for this election. It de-escalated tension. You know, if the outcome had been any different from this, perhaps we would have seen more violence than we saw, especially in Lagos. So to that extent, it was good. And this is an indication of a free and fair election. And then it sends a very strong message to the institution, the political class in Lagos, you know, about how a good number of the people of Lagos feel about the way things are going on in Lagos. So it offers lessons, you know, for the political class, the traditional political class in Lagos. And I think it's a compliment also to INEC that we're seeing this play out the way it played, because this victory is seriously significant. It's as significant as the victory of the PDP in Katsina, you know, and what we have seen in some other parts of the country, which in time past you could actually never dream of. So this pays compliment to this administration for superintending over an election that produced these kinds
of results,
of outcome.
All right, from one powerhouse state to another powerhouse state, let's go to Kano. Let's go to Kano to see what played out in Kano itself. Kano belonged to the APC. I use the word consciously in the past tense. But here we are. Of course, Labour Party didn't show up. But we had the NNPP finally showing up. Almost 1 million votes to the NNPP. The only state that the NNPP won, and what a way to win it. Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Habis.
Well, you see, Kanu and Bauchi have a history. And that history is that they have the capacity to change their leaders anytime, any day, even when the electoral process was flawed. They have a way of doing that, and it has persisted. But one thing that you ought to give to the leader of the NNPP is his revolutionary approach to politics. First, he started the re-engineering process in Kano State, building overpasses, underpasses, renovating schools, and then even his attempt to ensure that most of the basic infrastructure that were lacking, he provides, especially his last coming. The other thing that he has done, again, that has given him the platform in Kano State is his scholarship program. And this scholarship program is targeting the youth. Somebody that has never traveled to Abuja before will get selected and taken to, say, Egypt. Majority of the pilots today in Nigeria, especially Azman and other flights, their pilots are most of the people that Konkoso actually trained. So he was giving the younger generation hope that no matter your poverty, no matter the village you are coming from, you can be somebody. And that ties up to his Konkosia movement, that if you belong to that movement, whether your father was a former minister or former governor, you stand a chance to benefit from this very particular scholarship. And that really connected him to the youth, to the extent that if he raises his hand to say, ANPP, you have more than 1,000 people that will answer that call. So we didn't see what has happened as a surprise, because if you be following it consistently, the red cap revolution, as they normally call it, was underway, and every month, every day that people are graduating from universities abroad and they are coming back, right, new set of young persons are given those scholarship, and that creates that bond between him. And so if you check his communications, most of the people that volunteer, they are young persons that feel that they owe him that very particular duty to answer his call all the time. So, and then fundamentally, as I continue to say, is the respect the incumbents in their respective state have shown to the laws of the land, that they did not do anything to truncate the process. And that really ensure that whatever the people decided reflects. And Kano is one of the states that you could say is for APC. But look at the offset. It is because of the personality of the man that is involved.
All right, Dr. Amedu. Yes. Now, some have argued that Kwankwaso may have contested the presidential election, but that his target is Kano. Is this likely to be the outcome we see next Saturday, next weekend?
One of the things I have looked at from what has transpired these days is, while the case of Lagos is a parable of the weeping child, you know, the child that is always beaten by another fellow, one day he will raise up his confidence and will be able to retaliate and defeat that child. That's what has transpired in Lagos. Every other party has been, in quote, subdued over time. I say this time, let's be bold enough to confront our confronter. That was what played in Lagos. But the issue of Kano basically is a kind of a goodwill, scheme of a reward system. Kwankwaso, as an individual, has done so much for his people that no matter what, any day he raises his hand, people will support him, whether he is going anywhere or not going anywhere. Again, what we look up to for March 11th is that if there is a governorship candidate that is supported by Kwankwaso to that extent, then we shouldn't be surprised of whatever will be the outcome on March 11th, because his impact remains there. Now, I don't think anything will remove the name of Kwankwaso from their mind any longer. They have felt him, they have seen him, they have enjoyed him. So at least to tell him, thank you, we have done this. You know, basically in Nigeria, your goodwill most times are not rewarded at the polls. But Kwankwaso has played a different game pattern. That his own goodwill, his own support, his own performance to his people has been paid back with a reward.
Now, at some point, to shape our discussions further, at some point it will be interesting to have a breakdown of the winners of the National Assembly election, so that we'll begin to make permutations on who has what.
Yeah.
And begin to have an idea, wrap our heads around how the 10th Assembly might shape up. There are also some smaller parties who won National Assembly seats that are not Labour, APC, or PDP. And so it will be interesting to see how all of these shape up to become the 10th National Assembly. But let's go elsewhere where we saw another upset. We go down south in, let's say, Delta. Delta is traditionally PDP from 1999 to date. The tsunami did not spare Delta itself, not even because the PDP vice presidential candidate is governor of Delta State. What we see here is another landslide by the Labour Party. Another landslide by the Labour Party. And the PDP has to now settle for a paltry, by its own standards, 161,600 votes, as against 341,866 of the Labour Party. The others, well, is what you can expect usually in that PDP state. David Akoji, what played out here, beyond the labor factor, what else could have led to this kind of devastating upset?
I think to understand what played out in Delta, you would also need to take a look at what played out in the Southeast.
Okay.
You know, Labour appeared to have had a sweeping victory in the Southeast. You know, not many states in the Southeast,
Across.
yes, went to any other political party. And this is unlike what played out in other geopolitical zones, you know. So the sentiments in the Southeast are to a large extent also reflective of the sentiments that you would find in Delta State.
Because of proximity, perhaps?
Proximity, cultural nuances that are similar, you know, and belief systems and all of that. So that's an underlying factor that you would be looking at while analyzing the results in Delta. There are other minor factors, you know, like what played out in the PDP selection process. You understand? And then the bitterness and rancor, you know, even amongst the ranks and file within the Delta State PDP politics, you know, that also played out, may have led to the diminishing fortunes that you see for the PDP and which went in favor of Delta. Now, beyond that, Delta State is also a politically conscious state. You know, with highly mobile people, highly educated.
Diverse.
And diverse too, you know. So if you put all of that together, then you begin to understand how this played out, even though the vice presidential candidate of the PDP is from Delta State. You know, so these are some of the factors that that you would look at. And there are a lot of Deltans in diaspora. And you know, diaspora had huge influence on the voting decisions that especially the enlightened youth were taking. A lot of conversations on the social media platforms and the social media space influenced this that you are seeing. So those are some of the elements that have led to this outcome.
All right, I'm Sfira Janaku. Now, next